The era of Switch multiplayer games has been very strange so far. When it comes to Nintendo games, they're usually well made, but as of recently for the Switch era of Nintendo games, they've been seriously lacking with content. And this whole thing has been getting a bit more and more annoying with every new multiplayer game that's released, with some exceptions. And with Mario Strikers Battle League coming out next month, people are noticing something weird about the game. Where is Daisy? A character that has been in literally every single Mario spinoff has been suddenly absent in this game. And that makes people realize that Nintendo is going to be doing the whole free update thing for Mario Strikers. And this is probably the most controversial thing from Nintendo as of late. Okay, second worst. Third worst. But anyway, so how did it get to this point? How is it when we see a new Nintendo multiplayer, we get a bit concerned about it, especially when it comes to the Mario sports game? Well, here's the thing. Even though that this has been a controversial thing during the Switch era, this necessarily didn't start it during the Switch era. The whole free DLC thing from Nintendo actually started during the Wii U era with their very new IP at the time, Splatoon. I feel like people forgot about this aspect of Splatoon 1, but when it launched, it didn't really have that much stages at the time. There was literally about 5 stages during release. And once the final update was released, it tripled in size in terms of stages. But the difference here is that when it comes to the base release, even though that there was 5 stages, there were still a lot of things you could do, like the various modes you could play in the game or the single player campaign. And as for the free DLC, they started releasing it only a few days after they released the game. And for the next game they did with the free DLC was Super Mario Maker. Now, once this game released, it felt like a very complete game, like it didn't feel like they cut corners or anything. They even included this free art book for the physical version. And I can say the same thing when it comes to the sequel on Switch, Mario Maker 2, which felt like Mario Maker 1, but more. You can do an insane amount of variety in Mario Maker 2. However, once we reach during the Switch era, this is when things get a bit iffy when it comes to this mindset. ARMS was a game that released during 2017 that immediately got dropped in relevancy for a few years. One of the main complaints of ARMS during launch is that they only had 10 characters playable. Nintendo tried to do the free DLC thing for ARMS, but people then realized during the game's source code that the DLC characters were in the game. This really didn't help Nintendo's part when it comes to this free DLC aspect. Then suddenly in 2018, it got a lot worse for the terms free DLC for 2 games specifically. Kirby Star Allies was one of the more mixed Kirby games in the series because of how plain it was. Nintendo tried to expand the game's life with free DLC with various characters from the past, but people then realized that during the game's source code that the characters were in the game, just like ARMS in a way. And as for Mario Tennis Aces, well, Camelot was already in hot waters when it comes to Mario games during the Wii U and 3DS era with Mario Sports Superstars and Mario Tennis Ultra Smash. And I don't need to say anything about this game because you know about it. Our expectation was so low, we got very excited that there was different kinds of courts in this game. And once it released, it was, I thought it was pretty good at launch. But it did have that same stigma for other Nintendo games where you're just asking, where's the rest of it? That, and there's several other issues that Dimitri went further into it. I'll leave the description below to see the video. But going back to topic, this is when Nintendo fans realized what Nintendo has been doing as of late. When Mario Tennis Aces launched, it had about 16 characters, but once its final update released, it had about 30 characters. 30 characters is a good lineup, but it should have been there at launch. And to top it all off, during the final update for Aces, they added a completely new opening cutscene. Like, what? And even then, even with the final update, these games are still flawed in other aspects as well. They may have patched content, but they never patched out the flaws of the game design. The free updates for Kirby Star Allies was pretty fun, but the main adventure still has the same issues during the game's launch. The game played it safe and had multiplayer in mind, so they had to tone down the level design. And Mario Tennis Aces, even though that they had tons of new characters during post-launch, but even then, it still had the same issue like locking the minigames during the online service. And finally, we should talk about is Mario Golf Super Rush, where they mostly just add out 3 new characters and stages throughout the game's life. This is honestly not the worst update they did. The worst one they did was updated the game so you can have a difficulty meter. When the game launched, the computer AI was a complete joke. And even still, even with the final update, this game still has its flaws. The main mode of this game was Speed Golf and Battle Golf, which were completely dull in my opinion. There's really not that much remarkable, and it's way too short in my opinion. And even with the final update, Battle Golf just only has 2 arenas. They didn't even add in a new one. Honestly, Nintendo isn't gonna stop with the free DLC when it comes to multiplayer games, but they can still improve when it comes to this aspect. And funnily enough, they did well with this aspect during the Wii U era. Like, when Splatoon launched, it still had tons of variety, so once the free updates came, people were excited for it. Splatoon had a massive longevity during the Wii U era, because it had a great balance in terms of what they should do with the free DLC and when should they release it. And even then, the gameplay itself is really fun and addicting, especially when you're trying to do the single player campaigns, which gives the game a lot more replayability, especially when you're trying to get all the scrolls and stuff. And compare that to Mario Golf Super Rush, where it is still fun in aspects, but flaws in other ways. And compared to earlier entries, it is very embarrassing. Like, here's the thing. If Nintendo wants to do this whole free DLC thing, fine. But don't make it feel like it's a finish it later thing. The reason why people weren't as offended with Splatoon having free DLC compared to Mario Tennis or Mario Golf is because Splatoon, during base launch, it felt very complete. And even if you wanted a bit more stuff in it, it didn't take so long for free updates to come out. And even then, there was other ways Splatoon kept itself alive throughout the Wii U's life, like the Splatfest, which was an annual event in Splatoon where you could choose a side and compete. They even have some licensed series like SpongeBob, which proves that even after human extinction, SpongeBob will stay around. And as for the upcoming Mario Strikers Battle League, I do think they will do the DLC for Battle League, but I'm hoping for the base game, they'll do enough content in it so you can have a fun time. Free DLC should be a fun bonus, and not something you should use just to pad out the game's lifespan. But anyway, that'll do for today, so thank you for watching, and I'll see you later. Bye-bye!